Welcome to week 1 of the 6 months to SOC challenge. This week I'm going to be talking about and demonstrating some essential basic network security tools from both the attacker's perspective and the defender's perspective. Demoing 4 tools that are essential to security professionals: netstat, traceroute, dig, and Nmap. I even have a bonus tool I'm going to be demoing towards the end here to kind of wrap things up. It's going to be fun, so stick around. On the defensive side, these are investigation and troubleshooting tools SOC analysts use on the daily. I'll do some quick demos here and then we'll flip to the red team perspective. The first tool I'm demonstrating today is netstat. This tool shows every connection that your machine has, which is perfect for spotting malware that could be potentially calling back to C2 servers. So now to demonstrate using netstat, when you get into a Linux terminal, you can first start by just typing in netstat. And I'm going to use a couple of flags so that it can be easier to do things and look at things. So we're going to do -T to show the TCP connections, U to show the UDP connections, L to show the listening ports, and N to show the IP addresses that it could be potentially connected to in IP address format numerically instead of showing host names. You can put these flags in any order, just put a space and a dash in front of it, and you'll get the same output as me, showing what's going on your specific endpoint. So let's run that. And then we can see the TCP ports currently open, and they are showing that just the foreign address part just essentially shows that it allows pretty much any endpoint with an IP address to connect to it. And this is currently a purposefully vulnerable machine just for my demonstration. So you might see a few insecure protocols open here. And like I said, this is perfect for looking through and potentially seeing ports that shouldn't be open or connections that aren't supposed to be going on in the endpoint. If you're connected to a C2 server, which is a command and control server, this is where, let's say, for example, a user downloaded some malware and it's contacting a weird server that's actually executing commands and controlling it. That is a C2 server. You don't see any current connection establishments currently because this machine is vulnerable. So I have it on a private network, so there's nothing really connected to it. But you can see the ports that are open and the UDP and TCP ports. If I were in a SOC analyst role and I had an alert that one of our endpoints had suspicious connections, I would go on the endpoint and run netstat with these flags to see what ports are open, if they're legitimate, if they're supposed to be open, and who are they talking to? Who are they connected to? Is this something that's supposed to happen, or is this something suspicious? Based off what I determine, I'll enumerate further to decide what to do. But this is just one of the great reasons why netstat is a very important tool for an everyday SOC analyst. The next tool we're going to demonstrate here is the traceroute command. This command allows you to trace the route that your packets take to a certain destination. When you do that, this is great for troubleshooting and also can have security purposes with it as well. Let's say, for example, your packets weren't getting to an endpoint, they're losing connection somewhere, or they're just really slow, and you want to investigate and figure out why. You can use this tool to go in and check what's the slowest hop, why is it taking this long, where is the packet dropping? And doing this, you can troubleshoot your network and figure out what's going on internally. And from a security standpoint, let's say you notice that when you're doing something specifically on an endpoint, it's moving way slower than usual, or users are reporting that the computer is working way slower than usual. Sometimes you can go in and use that traceroute command intended for troubleshooting and find that a malicious actor could have actually poisoned your routes and changed the routing to actually go to him first, sort of a man-in-the-middle attack before it gets to the actual destination. I'm demonstrating the traceroute command from a photo I got online because running it inside of my virtual machine connected to the internet could potentially leave me vulnerable. So first we see they ran the traceroute command to 8.8.8.8, and traceroute is actually just traceroute, just the Windows version. They do the exact same thing. And this is 8.8.8 is actually Google's public DNS server, as we can see from the host name. And each of these lines here are all the hops that it takes to reach its destination. And over here, we can see the times that it takes to get there And if we were to see some really weird routing, like we have an internal routing infrastructure, and we see these going to contact external IPs, we would know that that would be a key indicator of compromise, that we potentially have routing table poisoning. Not only that, if things are just taking a really long time, make sure to contact the network team immediately to make sure that things are okay and things are being routed properly. This tool helps verify if entities and host names are really who they claim to be. By using this tool, we can get the IP address of the web server contacting us, which allows us to do a lot more things and really see if this is who they say that they are. To start this demonstration, let's go ahead and put ourselves in the shoes of a SOC analyst. Let's assume we're doing some phishing analysis on a suspicious domain that emailed our company. The domain is paypal.com. But as you can see, PayPal typically ends with the L, and this ends with a 1. So instantly we can think this is probably a typo squatting attack. But let's go ahead and use the tool dig to confirm that this is a real typo squatting attack and is phishing. So first we'll run the dig tool on the domain that looks odd and get the IP address of the web server. And then this is the IP address. And with this, we can do a lot more enumeration on whether or not they are who they say they are. So next, we're going to check the mail servers of this domain. Who handles the mail of this domain by running a dig query on them again, but running the dig query specifically for their mail records. Then we go ahead and run that, and we see this mail record right here, which is odd because PayPal is a pretty big company. I'm sure they would have their own mail servers, which BH Mark Monitor doesn't seem very typical for it. So that's another really odd thing that can kind of tip you off that this is probably phishing. But let's compare it against the actual PayPal domain. And we can figure that out by just going to the website and finding what the actual domain is. And I know it's paypal.com. So let's run that. And the first thing I notice here is that these IP addresses are nowhere near the IP address range of the one we saw with the weird domain. This one is 3. It starts with 3. These start in the hundreds, 150, 162. Like, these look at least relatively near each other, especially these two. That's another key indicator that it's probably phishing. And then lastly, let's check the mail servers of the real PayPal domain. Let's go dig MX, check out the mail records. And it seems that they do have their own mail servers. And that's just the biggest indicator right there that these are two completely different servers that they use for handling mail. So with the 3 things we got with the weird domain name that looks like typo squatting, to the IP address ranges that are completely different, and the 2 different mail servers that handle each of the domains, nothing's adding up. So we can go ahead and document this and report it as phishing and block any sort of emails that come into our company with this domain name. And now on to one of my favorite tools to play around with, Nmap. Attackers love to use tools like these to map out their attack surface so they can find the easiest way in. So as blue teamers, we have to use this first so that we can see what an attacker will see and patch up any weaknesses we find so that we can continue to keep our networks secure. To start off, we're going to use Nmap exactly how an attacker would use Nmap, though thinking as a blue teamer so we can use it to harden and protect our attack surface. So an attacker would run sudo nmap, and they're using sudo so that they can have access to raw sockets, which essentially just lets Nmap be more powerful. They're going to do -sv, which will show services and versions behind the open ports, and then -sc, which will use default scripts using the NSE, the Nmap scripting engine, which is a little bit more advanced, but it essentially just gives it more powers and tools to automate a few things and tell you more about the network right away. So, and then we're going to run this on a machine that we are looking at here. 101. And then we're going to let this go through, and I will see you guys when this scan is over. All right, perfect. Now the scan is done. And we're going to see exactly what an attacker would see if he scanned a host inside of your network that they had access to. So, for example, this is a purposely vulnerable machine that we're scanning, so there's a lot of things wrong with it. Like, first off, FTP, it seems that it was able to get anonymous login on there, which is obviously vulnerable, and lots of different things. And it was able to do this with the default scripts flag that we put there. And then it also was able to get the version of FTP that we're using and obviously find that it's FTP in general. Also because of the service, or because of the version and the service detection. And it will do that with a few services here. We'll be able to see a lot of things that it was able to break into. It was able to find SSH open, Telnet open, a few different things. And overall, you can just see the vast amount of information attackers can get from using Nmap and using an Nmap scan. And like I said, the amount of things they can automate to kind of already exploit and get into your network just with using a simple tool like this. So it's amazing for blue teamers to be able to do it first and patch up things like this, all of these things that are wrong with this machine that attackers can use and abuse. Obviously, you're going to have your works cut out for you if you have an endpoint like this in your network. I really hope you don't. But yeah, that is how a blue teamer would use Nmap, and you would just begin to secure every single port that you deem vulnerable. Now let's flip to a red team perspective with Nmap. I'm going to show you how you can leverage Nmap to use the information that you get back to exploit insecure protocols that could be potentially in your network. Now let's assume I ran this Nmap scan as an attacker. I'm mapping out my attack surface so I can find the easiest way in. So first thing, I obviously see FTP, I see SSH, and I see Telnet. And I want to exploit Telnet because I know that it's one of the easiest ways that I can get in, and I'm already on the public internet. So let's just see if their public internet actually uses the same internet that the staff uses in the back to use this protocol. So we're just going to open up Wireshark and see if anybody tries to log in or do anything. And assuming that they did, we can see all these Telnet packets or frames since we're in Wireshark. And from there, we know that we can look directly into this because Telnet actually is insecure and it doesn't use encryption. So we know that everything's decrypted and sent in plain text. So let's just open this packet up and see what's inside of it. And from here, we can see the credentials of Telnet, which gives us remote access into the server and pretty much already allows us to do whatever we want. As you can see, we can see the username right here, just kind of echoing back and forth with the client and server, and the password right here, which is the same as the username. And then we can also see that it says that they sent a echo, it says, you have I been pwned. Well, I wrote that wrong. No, it says have I been pwned. Okay, cool. Anywho, we can see that right away, and we know the credentials, and we now know a way in. And as an attacker, we found exactly what we're looking for, because now from there, we're going to look for a way to escalate our privileges so we can completely pwn and own the network. This is exactly how attackers leverage tools like Nmap to map out the attack surface and find the weakest way in. I hope you enjoyed the little bonus at the end there using Wireshark to demonstrate how attackers exploit vulnerable services like Telnet to break that CIA triad. It's super cool how security professionals use simple tools and commands like these to get key indicators of compromise to know if anybody's in their network or doing malicious things. I always find it so fascinating just seeing how much information you can get from just simple queries and commands. Starting out studying for the Blue Team Level 1 certification and the OSCP, I was doing a lot of review today, and I did already know some of these tools, but it reinforced my learning all the better. That concludes my first week of studying for the Blue Team Level 1 certification and the OSCP. Anyone intrigued by cybersecurity, I just opened up a Discord server where I'm building a community of like-minded individuals who love to talk security and have a little bit of fun. Link's going to be in the description. If this was helpful, hit that like button and subscribe, and turn on post notifications because I'm going to be dropping videos like these every week for the next 6 months to prove that anyone can land a job in cybersecurity with hard work and persistence. Lastly, check out my personal blog where I post full technical breakdowns about videos like these. Leave a comment down below and I will see you in the next video. Be tough.